Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, staring at the massive alien space station growing larger on his screen. After 3 months of travel through hyperspace, humanity was about to make first contact with an advanced alien civilization. His hands were steady on the control panel, but his heart was beating fast. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the station," said Lisa Grant, his communications officer. She was a smart woman who had learned 12 different alien languages just for this mission. "They're telling us where to dock." Jake nodded and looked around at his crew. There was Tony Rodriguez at the pilot controls, his fingers dancing over the buttons like he was born to fly. Amy Parker sat at the medical station, ready to help if anyone got hurt. And in the back stood Carl Johnson, a Marine sergeant whose job was to keep everyone safe. "Remember, we're here to make friends," Jake told his team. "Earth needs allies out here." The Endeavour slowly moved into the docking bay of the alien station. Through the windows, Jake could see hundreds of different alien ships. Some looked like giant insects, others like metal flowers. The station itself was beautiful, with lights that changed colors and walls that seemed to move like water. When the ship was secure, Jake put on his best uniform and walked to the airlock, the artificial. Gravity on the station felt lighter than Earth normal. Each step made him feel like he could jump over a building. The airlock opened, and Jake got his first look at real aliens. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, with pale blue skin that looked almost transparent. Their heads were large, with big, black eyes that never seemed to blink. They moved gracefully, like dancers, but something about them seemed fragile. "Welcome, human," said their leader in perfect English. "I am High Counselor Vexton of the Zephyrian Alliance. We have been watching your species with great interest." Jake stepped forward and offered his hand. The alien looked at it strangely, but touched it briefly. Vexton's hand felt cold and delicate, like touching a bird's wing. "Thank you for meeting with us," Jake said. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth and humanity. We hope we can be friends and work together." Vexton made a sound that might have been laughter. Other aliens gathered around them, all staring at Jake and his crew. Some were even stranger than the Zephyrians. One looked like a walking tree, another like a floating jellyfish with tentacles. "Work together?" Vexton said. "How amusing. Come, let me show you how the galaxy really works." They walked through corridors filled with alien art and technology that seemed impossible. The walls showed moving pictures of different worlds, and the air smelled like flowers Jake had never encountered. Everything was beautiful, but also somehow soft and delicate. Finally, they reached a great hall where hundreds of aliens were waiting. They sat in chairs that floated in the air, all looking down at the small group of humans. Jake felt like an animal in a zoo. "Citizens of the Alliance," Bexton announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "These are the humans from the third planet of Sol System. They believe they can be our equals." A divive of sounds came from the crowd. Jake couldn't tell if they were laughing or talking, but it didn't sound friendly. "Humans," Vexton continued, "your species is young and primitive. You have barely learned to travel between stars. We have ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of your years, but we are not without mercy." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "What are you offering?" "Join the Alliance as a client species," Vexton said. "You will provide workers and soldiers for our great civilization. In return, we will protect you and give you basic technology." It is far more than most species receive. The hall went quiet. Every alien eye was on Jake, waiting for his answer. "That's very generous," Jake said slowly. "But we were hoping for something more like a partnership between equals." This time the sound from the crowd was definitely laughter. Vexton's large eyes seemed to shine with amusement. "Equals?" he said. My dear human, you don't understand your place in the universe. Allow me to demonstrate. Two alien guards brought in a large crystal boulder and placed it in the center of the hall. The crystal was beautiful, catching the light and throwing rainbows everywhere, but it was also massive. This is a sacred stone from our home world, Vex then explained. For thousands of years, we have used it to test the strength of species who wish to join us. Many have tried to lift it. All have failed. It weighs what you would call 800 of your pounds. Jake looked at the crystal, then at his crew. Lisa was running calculations on her portable computer, her fingers moving quickly. She caught his eye and nodded slightly. And if I can lift it? Jake asked. Then perhaps we will consider your request for partnership, Vex then said. But when you fail, as you surely will accept our generous offer of client status. Jake walked over to the crystal. It was about the size of a large desk with sharp edges that caught the light. He could hear hundreds of aliens whispering to each other, probably making bets on how badly he would embarrass himself. He bent down and got a good grip on the crystal. The aliens were right about one thing. It was heavy. But Jake had grown up on Earth, where everything was heavy. He had lifted weights in Earth's crushing gravity since he was a teenager. His muscles were built for a world that tried to crush everything that lived on it. Jake took a deep breath and lifted. The crystal came up smoothly. There was a moment of absolute silence in the hall as every alien stared in shock. Jake held the massive stone over his head for a few seconds. Then, feeling a bit angry at their arrogance, he hurled it across the hall. The sacred crystal shattered against the far wall with a crash that echoed through the chamber. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of alarm bells. The alarm bells screamed through the great hall as pieces of the shattered crystal scattered across the floor. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the chaos, his hands still tingling from throwing the massive stone. Around him, hundreds of aliens were making sounds of panic and fear. High Counselor Vix then pointed a long, thin finger at Jake. His pale blue face had turned almost white. "Arrest them," he shouted in his musical voice. "They have destroyed the sacred stone of strength." Alien guards rushed into the hall from every direction. They carried weapons that glowed with strange energy and wore armor that looked like it was made of living metal. But as they got closer, Jake could see something in their big dark eyes. They were afraid. "Jake, we need to move," Carl Johnson sighed quietly. The Marine sergeant had his hand on his weapon, but he hadn't drawn it yet. These aren't soldiers. They're more like police who never had to fight anyone strong before. Lisa Grant was still working on her computer, her fingers flying over the keys. "Captain, the gravity here is only 70% of Earth normal. That crystal wasn't as heavy as they thought it was for us." The first guard reached Jake and tried to grab his arm. The alien's grip felt like a child's hand. Jake didn't even try to hurt the guard. He just pulled his arm away, but the alien flew backward and crashed into a wall. A guard's armor cracked like an eggshell. "I didn't mean to hurt him," Jake said, but more guards were coming. Tony Rodriguez grabbed Jake's shoulder. "Captain, we need to get back to the ship, now." The four humans started running toward the exit, with Amy Parker staying close to the group. The aliens tried to stop them, but it was like trying to stop a freight train with butterfly nets. When the guards shot their energy weapons, the beams barely made the humans stumble. When they tried to tackle the humans, they bounced off like they were made of paper. Carl Johnson finally drew his weapon when a group of guards blocked their path. "Move!" he shouted, and the sound of his voice made the aliens scatter. His gun wasn't even the most advanced human weapon, but compared to the delicate alien technology, it might as well have been a cannon. They ran through the beautiful corridors of the space station. past walls covered with alien art and windows showing. The stars. Behind them, more and more guards were joining the chase, but none of them seemed to know how to deal with creatures that could shrug off their weapons and break their equipment by accident. There, Amy Parker pointed to a side corridor. That way leads to the detention center. If they have any human prisoners, we need to get them. How do you know that? Jake asked as they ran. I've been watching the station layout on my scanner, Amy replied. There's a human life sign in that direction. They turned down the corridor and found themselves in a part of the station that looked different. The walls were gray and plain, and the air smelled stale. It was clearly a prison area. Carl Johnson shot the lock off the first cell they found. Inside was a woman in a torn Earth uniform. She looked up at them with surprise and relief. Dr. Elena Vasquez, she said, getting to her feet. I'm a xenobiologist. I was studying here when the war declaration came through. War declaration? Jake asked. Elena nodded grimly. The Alliance decided humans are too dangerous to exist. They're planning to attack Earth within the week. Why were you studying here? Lisa asked as they helped Elena out of the cell. I was part of a secret research project, Elena explained as they started running again. The Alliance has been studying human biology for months. They know things about us that we don't even know about ourselves. They reached the docking bay where the Endeavour was waiting. But alien security forces had surrounded their ship. Dozens of guards with energy weapons were pointing them at the human vessel. Tony, can you get us to the ship? Jake asked. Doc Tony Rodriguez grinned. Captain, I've been flying since I was 12. These aliens move like they're underwater. What happened? Next would be talked about in alien military schools for years to come. Tony didn't run toward the ship in a straight line. Instead, he zigzagged and jumped, using the low gravity to bounce off walls and ceilings. The alien guards tried to track him with their weapons, but their reflexes were too slow. They were used to fighting creatures that moved at their own gentle pace. Carl Johnson followed Tony's lead, drawing the fire of the guards while the others ran for the ship. Every time an energy beam hit him, he just grunted and kept going. His Earth-built body could absorb damage that would kill most aliens instantly. Amy Parker helped Elena while Lisa Grant uploaded data from her computer to the ship's systems. I recorded everything, Lisa said. Earth needs to know what we're dealing with. They reached the Endeavour and threw themselves through the airlock. Tony was already at the pilot controls, his hands dancing over the buttons faster than any alien could follow. The ship lifted off before the guards could react. Elena, Jake said as they flew away from the space station. What did you learn about humans while you were here? Elena looked out the window at the alien station growing smaller behind them. Jake, humans aren't just stronger than most aliens. We're stronger than all of them. Every single species in the Alliance evolved on worlds with light gravity, thin air, and gentle conditions. Earth is what they call a death world. What does that mean? Amy asked. It means, Elena said quietly, that from their perspective, humans are monsters. We can survive in conditions that would kill them in seconds. We can fight with injuries that would put them in shock. We can lift weights that would crush their bones. Jake stared at the star field ahead of them. And now they want to destroy Earth because they're afraid of us. Not just afraid, Elena corrected. They're terrified. They've run computer simulations. If humans ever get advanced space technology, we could conquer the entire galaxy just by walking onto their worlds. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward Earth and war. Behind them, the Zephyrian Alliance was already mobilizing the largest military force in galactic history. They had decided that humanity was too dangerous to live, but they didn't understand what they were really fighting. They thought they were dealing with primitive aliens who got lucky with 1 feat of strength. They had no idea they were about to face creatures forged by the harshest world in the galaxy. Admiral Patricia Woods stood in the command center on Earth, watching the emergency meeting of world leaders on her main screen. The message from Captain Jake Morrison had arrived just 6 hours ago, and already the planet was preparing for war. The alien fleet will reach Mars in 3 days, she told the room full of generals and politicians. We have 48 ships ready to fight, but intelligence suggests they're bringing over 300 vessels. General Kevin Torres, head of Earth's military forces, stepped forward. Admiral, our ships might be outnumbered, but Jake's report suggests we have other advantages. Dr. Stone has been analyzing the alien technology data that Lisa Grant sent us. Dr. Marcus Stone, a thin man with thick glasses, pulled up holographic displays showing alien weapons and ships. The enemy technology is advanced, but it's built for beings who are physically weak. Their energy weapons are designed to kill creatures with thin skin and hollow bones. Their armor is meant to protect against gentle impacts. Patricia nodded. What about our equipment? Our weapons are built for Earth conditions, Marcus explained. Our bullets are designed to penetrate thick animal hide and dense bone. Our armor is made to protect against impacts that would crush an alien instantly. We might actually have better military equipment than they do. On the other side of the solar system, Colonel Danny Hayes was preparing the Mars colony for attack. He had only 200 Marines under his command, but they were all volunteers who had signed up knowing they might have to fight aliens. Listen up, Danny told his troops as they checked their weapons in the colony's main hangar. The aliens think humans are weak because we're new to space travel. They don't know that we're from a world that's been trying to kill us since we learned to walk. Sergeant Nina Collins, a tough woman from Texas, raised her hand. Sir, what should we expect from alien soldiers? According to the intelligence reports, they're tall, thin, and fragile, Danny replied. Their bones break easily, and they can't handle pain the way we can. But they have superior numbers and energy weapons. Private Rick Davis, barely 20 years old, looked nervous. Colonel, what if their weapons can cut right through our armor? Danny smiled grimly. Then we'll find out how tough human skin really is. Back on Earth, Linda Murphy was working in the communications center, listening to alien radio signals. She had learned to understand some alien languages during her years of monitoring deep space transmissions. Admiral Woods, Linda called out, I'm picking up Alliance military communications. They're talking about something called Operation Clean Sweep. Patricia walked over to Linda's station. What are they saying? Linda's face was pale as she translated. They're not just planning to attack our military. They want to destroy every human city, every colony, every ship. They call us a plague that needs to be wiped out completely. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. This wasn't going to be a normal war with negotiations and treaties. The aliens wanted to commit genocide. How long until their main fleet reaches Earth? Patricia asked. 2 weeks, Dr. Stone replied, checking his calculations. But their advance force will hit Mars tomorrow. On Mars, the attack began at dawn. Danny Hayes watched through his binoculars as alien ships descended from the sky like metal raindrops. They were beautiful and deadly, with smooth curves and weapons that glowed with inner light. The aliens landed in perfect formation and began marching toward the human colony. His scope, Danny could see them clearly. They moved like dancers, with graceful steps and flowing movements. Their armor was works of art, covered with patterns that shifted and changed color. They look like angels, Nina Collins whispered. Angels don't come to commit murder, Danny replied. All units, remember your training. Wait for my signal. The alien army approached the colony walls. Their leader, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, spoke through a translation device. "Humans of Mars," the alien announced. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make you suffer." Danny Hayes stood up on the wall where every alien could see him. "Here's our answer," he shouted, and fired his rifle. The bullet hit the alien leader in the chest and sent him flying backward. His beautiful armor cracked like glass, and green blood poured out onto the red Martian soil. What happened next shocked the entire alien army. The leader should have been dead instantly, but he was still moving, still trying to speak. On their homeworld, such an injury would have killed any creature in seconds. "Impossible," the aliens whispered to each other in their musical language. Then the real battle began. The aliens fired their energy weapons, and Danny felt the heat wash over him. The beam burned his uniform and scorched his skin, but he didn't fall down. He didn't even stop shooting. Nina Collins took a direct hit from an alien plasma cannon. The energy beam should have vaporized her, but instead she stumbled, cursed loudly, and kept fighting. Her armor was melted in places, and she had burns on her arms, but she was still alive and angry. "Is that the best you got?" She yelled at the aliens. Rick Davis got hit by 3 different energy weapons at the same time. He fell down, and the aliens thought they had killed him. But 10 seconds later, Rick stood up, shook his head, and started shooting again. The alien soldiers began to panic. They were fighting creatures that should have died from their first attacks, but the humans just kept coming. Every shot that should have been fatal barely slowed them down. Danny Hayes ran straight into a group of alien soldiers, and they scattered like frightened birds. When one of them tried to fight hand to hand, Danny grabbed the alien's weapon and crushed it in his bare hands. The alien soldier fainted from shock dot within an hour. The entire alien army was retreating to their ships. They sent desperate messages to their commanders, reporting that humans were impossible to kill and seemed to feel no pain. But the messages that really scared the Alliance leadership were the ones describing how humans fought. The aliens talked about creatures that laughed when they were shot, that kept fighting with injuries that should have been fatal, and that seemed to enjoy the battle. "They fight like demons," one alien commander reported. "They are not civilized beings. They are monsters from a nightmare world." The Alliance had expected an easy victory on Mars. Instead, they learned that humans were not just physically superior. They were also mentally tougher, able to keep thinking and fighting in conditions that would break the spirit of any civilized species. The news of the Mars victory spread across Earth within hours. Humanity had won its first battle against an alien invasion force. But everyone knew this was just the beginning of a much larger war. 6 months after the Battle of Mars, Captain Sue Bennett stood on the bridge of the battleship Uns Defiant, watching enemy ships retreat in the distance. The human counterattack had begun, and the aliens were learning what it meant to fight creatures from a death world. "Captain, we're getting surrender signals from 3 more alien vessels," reported her communications officer. "That makes 15 ships that have given up without firing a shot." Sue nodded, but she wasn't surprised. Word had spread through the alien fleet about what happened when humans boarded enemy ships. The stories were so terrifying that many alien crews preferred to surrender rather than face human Marines in close combat. "Any word from Major Davis on Proxima Station?" Sue asked. "Yes, ma'am," came the reply. "The station is secure. The aliens abandoned it when they heard we were coming." Rick Davis, now promoted to major after his heroic actions on Mars, was leading ground operations across the sector. What had started as desperate defense was now becoming systematic liberation of human colonies and captured territory. On Proxima Station, Rick walked through corridors that had been built for beings much taller and thinner than humans. The alien architecture was beautiful but impractical. The walls were covered with delicate artwork that cracked if you touched it too hard. The floors were made of material that dented under human footsteps. Major Gavis called Sergeant Nina Collins as she jogged up to him. She had recovered from her injuries on Mars and was now one of humanity's most decorated soldiers. "We found the alien research labs you wanted to see." They walked deeper into the station, past abandoned alien equipment and scattered personal belongings. The aliens had left in such a hurry that they hadn't taken anything with them. The research lab was filled with computers and scientific equipment that hummed with quiet energy. But what caught Rick's attention were the cages along one wall. They were built to hold humans, and some still had people inside. "Get them out of there," Rick ordered Dot as his soldiers freed the human prisoners. Rick examined the alien research data with Dr. Frank Miller, a scientist who had joined the military expedition. Frank was one of the few humans who could read alien languages fluently. "This is incredible," Frank said, staring at the alien computer screens. "They've been studying us for over a year. Look at this." The screen showed detailed scans of human bodies compared to alien physiology. The differences were shocking. Human bones were 3 times denser than alien bones. Human muscles contained twice as much fiber. Human organs were protected by layers of fat and tissue that aliens didn't have. "Frank, what does this mean?" Rick asked. "It means we're not just stronger than them," Frank replied. "We're built completely differently. Look at this section about pain tolerance." Frank pointed to charts showing human and alien nervous systems. "When we get hurt, our bodies release chemicals that help us ignore pain and keep fighting. Aliens don't have this system. A small injury that we would ignore completely can put an alien into shock." Rick read over Frank's shoulder. "What about this section on environmental adaptation?" "That's the really scary part," Frank said. "We can survive in temperatures from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius. Most aliens can only survive in a range of 10 degrees. We can breathe air with different oxygen levels. We can drink water that would poison them. We can eat food that would kill them." One of the freed prisoners, a woman named Betty Carter, who had been captured 3 months ago, walked over to them. "Major, you need to hear what the aliens were saying about humans." "What did they tell you?" Rick asked. Betty's voice was quiet but angry. "They said humans are impossible. They said we heal from injuries that should be fatal. They said we keep fighting when we should be dead. They said we're like machines that don't know how to quit." "Did they say anything about Earth?" Rick asked. "They're terrified of our planet," Betty replied. "They call it the Hell World. They said nothing that evolved on Earth should be able to exist. They think we're some kind of mistake that nature made." Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Woods was meeting with alien prisoners for the first time. The Alliance had sent a small diplomatic ship under a white flag, carrying representatives who wanted to discuss surrender terms. The alien diplomats were even more fragile-looking than the soldiers. They moved carefully, as if they were afraid the Earth's gravity would crush them. When Patricia offered to shake hands, they backed away in fear. "Admiral Woods," said the lead diplomat through his translator, "we wish to discuss ending this conflict." "I'm listening," Patricia replied. "The Alliance offers to withdraw from all human territory," the diplomat continued. "We will pay compensation for damages. We will share technology. We ask only that humans promise not to expand beyond your current space." Patricia studied the alien carefully. "You're not here to negotiate. You're here to beg." The diplomat's skin color changed from blue to pale white. "Admiral, you must understand. Your species is beyond our ability to fight. We have never encountered beings like you." "What do you mean?" Patricia asked. "In 6 months of war, we have lost 800 ships," the diplomat said. "You have lost 12. We have had 50,000 soldiers killed or wounded. You have had 300 casualties. Our best weapons barely slow you down. Your simplest weapons destroy our finest equipment. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had become Earth's expert on alien psychology, stepped forward. Why are you really here? The alien diplomat looked at her with his large, dark eyes. Because we are dying, he said simply. Every day this war continues. More of our people are killed or surrender. Our soldiers refuse to fight humans. Our ship crews abandon their posts rather than face your forces. And if we refuse your terms? Patricia asked. Then humanity will rule the galaxy, the diplomat replied. Not because you conquer it, but because everyone else will run away. Elena leaned forward. You're not just offering surrender. You're warning us. The diplomat nodded slowly. There are other powers in this galaxy, Admiral. Ancient civilizations that make the Alliance look primitive. When they learn about humans, they will not try to negotiate or fight fair wars. They will try to destroy your entire solar system before you can spread. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. How long do we have? The hegemony will hear about this war within a year, the diplomat said. They have weapons that can turn stars into bombs. They have been the real rulers of this galaxy for 10,000 years. Then why are you telling us this? Patricia asked. The alien skin shifted to a deep purple color that Elena recognized as embarrassment. Because we hope that when the hegemony comes for you, you will be too busy fighting them to remember what we did to you. The room went quiet as everyone understood what the alien was really saying. Humanity had won the war against the Alliance, but it had also attracted the attention of something much more dangerous. The counterattack had been successful, but it had also announced to the galaxy that a new power had emerged from the outer rim, a species so physically superior that established civilizations couldn't fight them with conventional methods. Patricia Woods looked out the window at the stars and wondered what was already heading toward Earth. 1 year after first contact, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Unzes Defiant, watching the final alien surrender ceremony. The war was over, but Jake knew this was really just the beginning of something much bigger. High. Counselor Vexton looked very different from the proud alien leader Jake had met a year ago. The Zephyrian's pale blue skin had turned almost gray, and his large dark eyes seemed to have lost their shine. He moved slowly, like an old man carrying a heavy burden. On behalf of the Zephyrian Alliance, Vexton said in a quiet voice, I formally surrender all military forces to human command. We accept full responsibility for starting this war and agree to pay for all damages. Jake nodded, but didn't smile. He had learned a lot about leadership during the war. The fighting is over, Counselor. Now we need to figure out how to live together. Vexton looked surprised. You are not going to enslave us? Execute our leaders? Take our worlds? No, Jake replied. We're going to do something different. Later that day, Jake met with President Rachel Stone, who had flown up from Earth for the ceremony. Rachel was a smart woman who had led humanity through its first interstellar war. Now she had to lead them into an uncertain peace. Jake, what are we going to do about the hegemony? Rachel asked as they walked through the human section of the space station. I've been thinking about that, Jake replied. Dr. Elena has been working with alien scientists to learn more about this ancient civilization. The news isn't good. They found Elena in the research lab, surrounded by alien computers and human scientists. She looked tired but excited, like someone who had been working for days without sleep. President Stone, Elena said, standing up quickly. I'm glad you're here. We've learned some important things about the hegemony. Tell me, Rachel said. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. The hegemony controls about 60% of all known space. They've been the dominant power for 10,000 years. But here's the interesting part. They're not conquerors. What do you mean? Jake asked. They don't invade planets or enslave species, Elena explained. They just eliminate threats. When a new civilization becomes too powerful or too dangerous, the hegemony destroys their home system completely. Rachel felt cold. How? They have weapons that can make stars explode, Elena said quietly. They can turn an entire solar system into empty space in a few hours. And they're coming for us? Rachel asked. Elena nodded. Our alien friends estimate we have maybe 6 months before hegemony scouts reach this sector. Jake looked at the star map, thinking. Elena, do we know anything about hegemony biology? Are they like the Alliance species? That's the mystery, Elena replied. Nobody has ever seen a hegemony citizen and lived to tell about it. Some aliens think they're machines. Others think they're energy beings. A few believe they're just very old and powerful versions of regular organic species. Captain Lisa Grant entered the lab, carrying a datapad with new information. Admiral Morrison, we just received something interesting from our deep space monitoring stations. What is it? Jake asked. We detected ships entering the outer system, Lisa said. They're not like anything in our databases. The energy signatures are completely unknown. Everyone in the room went quiet. They all knew what this meant. How? Long until they reach Earth? Rachel asked. 3 days, Lisa replied. President Stone looked around the room at the faces of her advisors and friends. Then we need to make a decision. Do we run or do we fight? Where would we run to? Jake asked. If the hegemony can destroy star systems, nowhere in the galaxy is safe. Dr. Frank Miller, who had been working quietly at a computer, suddenly stood up. Wait, I think I found something important. He brought up new data on the main screen. I've been analyzing reports from species that have encountered the hegemony before. Look at this pattern. The screen showed a timeline of hegemony interventions over the past 1,000 years. Every species they destroyed had one thing in common. They all developed weapons capable of destroying planets or star systems. So? Rachel asked. So humans haven't developed those weapons yet, Frank explained. We're powerful, but we're not a cosmic threat. Maybe the hegemony isn't coming to destroy us. Maybe they're coming to evaluate us. Elena looked thoughtful. That would make sense. The hegemony might want to see if humans are going to become a threat to galactic stability. Then we need to show them we're not enemies, Rachel decided. Jake, prepare a diplomatic mission. I'm going to meet these hegemony representatives personally. 3 days later, President Rachel Stone stood in the main hangar of Luna Station, waiting for the unknown ships to arrive. With her were Jake Morrison, Elena Vasquez, and a small group of Earth's best diplomats and scientists. The hegemony ship that entered the hangar was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed and changed shape constantly. When it landed, a section of the ship simply opened like a flower. The being that emerged was tall and elegant, with skin that looked like it was made of starlight. It moved with grace and purpose, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music. I am Observer Zolthik of the hegemony, it said in perfect English. We have come to evaluate the species called humanity. Rachel stepped forward, trying not to show how nervous she felt. I'm President Rachel Stone. Welcome to our solar system. The hegemony observer studied her with eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. We have monitored your conflict with the Alliance. Your species displays remarkable physical capabilities. We defend ourselves when attacked, Rachel replied carefully. Yes, Zolthik said. But you also showed mercy to defeated enemies. You offered partnership instead of domination. This is unusual for a species with your level of physical power. Jake stepped forward. What does the hegemony want from humanity? Zolthek turned those strange, beautiful eyes toward him. We want you to continue being exactly what you are. I don't understand, Rachel said. The galaxy needs protectors, Zalthik explained. Species that are strong enough to maintain peace, but wise enough not to abuse that strength. The hegemony has served this role for 10,000 years, but we are tired. We seek successors. Elena gasped. You want humans to help police the galaxy? Not immediately, Zalthik replied. You are still young and learning. But in time, perhaps centuries from now, humanity may be ready to share the burden of maintaining galactic civilization. Rachel looked around at her advisors, then back at the hegemony observer. And if we refuse? Then you continue as you are, Zalthik said simply, free to grow and develop as you choose. The hegemony does not force species to serve. We only ask that you remember compassion as your power grows. The observer began walking back toward its ship. We will be watching humans, not as enemies, but as potential allies. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders. Perhaps one day you will help us protect them all. As the hegemony ship departed, Rachel Stone stood with her friends and advisors, looking out at the stars. Humanity had survived its first contact with galactic civilization. They had won a war against overwhelming odds and gained the respect of ancient powers. But most importantly, they had remained human, strong enough to fight when necessary, but wise enough to choose peace when possible. The galaxy was full of dangers and opportunities, and humans were ready to face whatever came next together.